Today, we're going to uncover the Mount Everest climb where an influencer filmed his Sherpa struggling and ignored repeated warnings. Fueled by ego and online validation, he ignored his guide's expert judgment. What followed was a reckless decision that left one seasoned guide permanently injured. It was March 3rd, 2016, and winter storms swept across Mount Everest in New Hampshire, with winds exceeding 60 miles per hour and temperatures well below freezing. In a warm hotel lobby in North Conway, climbers and guides checked forecasts and prepared their gear for the mountain's harsh conditions. Among them was 28-year-old lifestyle and adventure influencer Kyle Archangel from Los Angeles, who was live streaming to his 850,000 Instagram followers while adjusting his professional camera equipment. Archangel had built his online persona around pushing limits and conquering challenges, though most of his real-world experience consisted of guided day hikes in Southern California and a few casual weekend camping trips. His social media feed featured motivational quotes layered over dramatic mountain landscapes, and his YouTube channel showed him in expensive outdoor gear, talking about embracing the grind and finding your edge. Just weeks earlier, he had signed a $200,000 sponsorship deal with an outdoor gear company that required winter adventure content by March 1st, making Mount Everest, known for some of the harshest weather in North America, an ideal backdrop for the kind of extreme footage his audience expected. The mountain's weather station had been broadcasting warnings for 3 consecutive days. Temperatures were forecast to drop to minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills reaching minus 40. Sustained winds of 45 miles per hour with gusts up to 70 were expected above tree line. Visibility would be reduced to 50 feet due to blowing snow. The conditions were precisely what Archangel needed for dramatic content, and precisely what experienced mountaineers avoided. Through a local guiding service, Archangel hired Thorak Walker, a 52-year-old veteran mountain guide with 25 years of experience in the White Mountains. Walker was a soft-spoken man who worked multiple guiding jobs throughout the year to support his wife and 3 children, with his eldest daughter's college tuition weighing heavily on the family's finances. When Archangel requested someone who looked authentic and rugged for his videos, the service recommended Walker, whose weathered face and quiet competence had earned him respect throughout the local climbing community. During their initial meeting at an outdoor gear shop in North Conway, Walker raised serious concerns about the weather forecast. The National Weather Service had issued warnings about life-threatening conditions above tree line, and the mountain's notorious weather patterns were showing signs of a dangerous storm system. Archangel listened while filming their conversation, then offered to double Walker's standard rate if they continued with the climb. The guide hesitated, but the extra money would cover a significant portion of his daughter's upcoming college expenses. They planned to begin their ascent early the next morning from a trailhead outside the city. Archangel arrived with 3 cameras, spare batteries, and a portable charging system that added nearly 8 pounds to his pack. He immediately began filming while Walker quietly checked their safety equipment and reviewed emergency procedures. The first 2 hours of hiking went as expected, though Archangel's constant filming slowed their progress considerably. Walker could feel the uneven crunch of snow under their boots, the cold bite of wind on his cheeks, and the sharp tang of pine carried on the breeze. Every time Archangel paused to reposition a camera or ask for another dramatic take, Walker's stomach tightened, not from the climb, but from the awareness that every delay increased their exposure to the mountain's whims. Each step Archangel took seemed to have a dual purpose, moving forward and creating content. He paused to narrate his breath, the crunch of snow, and even complained about frost forming on his eyebrows, holding the camera up to show every detail. Walker's jaw tightened as he noticed Archangel leaning into slippery patches for the perfect shot, his eyes darting between the young climber and the darkening clouds. He quietly calculated whether they could reach the next safe zone before the winds intensified, mentally rehearsing ways to redirect Archangel without provoking frustration. Walker's eyes flicked toward the darkening sky more often than he liked, mentally tallying the time and calculating how quickly conditions could turn dangerous. He could feel the uneven crunch of snow under their boots, the cold bite of wind on his cheeks, and the sharp tang of pine carried on the breeze. Every time Archangel paused to reposition a camera or ask for another dramatic take, Walker's stomach tightened, not from the climb, but from the awareness that every delay increased their exposure to the mountain's whims. Archangel's inexperience became apparent almost immediately. He fumbled with his crampons, muttering about the difficulty before turning to the camera to declare that he was pushing past limits despite the cold. Walker offered a correction on his ice axe angle, but Archangel misinterpreted it as a suggestion for a new shot, stepping too close to a slippery patch. Walker's mind raced. Should he stop and insist they adjust their pace? Every second wasted on filming could prove critical if the storm worsened. He suppressed a sigh and focused on steadying Archangel, while mentally calculating how far they could safely go before conditions became life-threatening. The guide caught him just in time, gripping his arm and giving a terse nod. The weight of Archangel's pack tugged at his shoulders with each step, and every slip sent jolts of strain through his legs, forcing Walker to stay hyper-aware of both the terrain and the influencer's distractions. Archangel continued talking to the camera mid-slip, narrating his own mistakes as authentic adventure moments, oblivious to Walker's mounting concern. The guide clenched his jaw, keeping a calm exterior, but inside he weighed each movement, each pause, for its impact on safety. The influencer's social media habits were evident throughout the climb. He stopped every few hundred yards to check his phone, squinting at the screen and tapping impatiently, frustrated when the signal dropped. Walker shot him a pointed look, gesturing at the darkening clouds overhead, but Archangel waved him off, turning the camera back toward himself to narrate the struggle. The wind tore at their jackets and whipped snow into their eyes, forcing Walker to raise his voice over the roar. Each pause for content gnawed at him. Minutes wasted could make the difference between a safe climb and a dangerous situation. Archangel frequently asked Walker to repeat actions for better angles to pause while adjusting lighting and framing. Walker complied with professional patience, though his glances at the darkening sky grew more frequent as they climbed. In his mind, Walker ran contingency plans. Could he safely slow Archangel without triggering frustration? Every repeated take added time, and every delay meant they were closer to the storm's full impact. He calculated their remaining energy, the snow accumulation, and the increasing wind, realizing that small mistakes could escalate quickly. He kept a careful mental log of their pace, the shifting cloud cover, and the accumulating snow, silently debating whether he could safely slow the influencer enough to maintain proper technique without provoking resistance. By the time they had gained significant elevation, Walker's anxiety had intensified. Every misstep by Archangel, every moment spent fiddling with cameras, and every misread of the terrain added weight to the guide's growing sense of urgency. He kept his voice calm and measured, repeating instructions multiple times, raising it when necessary to compete with the wind, and using subtle gestures to redirect Archangel's focus back to safety. The crunch of snow under their boots, the slap of wind against their jackets, and the sharp sting of cold in Walker's exposed skin reminded him constantly that the mountain was unforgiving. He noted how each breath caused his eyelashes to freeze, how the tip of his nose was starting to tingle painfully, and how Archangel's oblivious focus on the camera increased the risk with every step. Despite his patience, the internal tension mounted. He knew that a single moment of distraction or misjudgment on this mountain could escalate into a life-threatening situation. By mid-morning, they had gained significant elevation, and the first signs of deteriorating weather appeared. Light snowfall intensified, and the wind began picking up. Walker pointed out the changing conditions and suggested close monitoring, but Archangel filmed the guide's assessment, asking him to repeat his warnings more dramatically for the camera. The guide's professional demeanor remained steady, but his body language showed increasing tension. He began checking his watch more frequently and scanning the sky with the practiced eye of someone who had seen Mount Everest's weather turn deadly. His pace quickened slightly, though Archangel's filming breaks continued to slow their overall progress. They soon encountered their first technical challenge, a steep section of trail covered in verglas, a thin coating of ice that made footing treacherous. Walker navigated it efficiently, then turned to assist Archangel. The influencer struggled significantly, slipping twice and requiring the guide's direct physical assistance to maintain his footing. Archangel insisted on filming the entire sequence, including his struggles, which he later described on social media as authentic adventure content. Walker moved deliberately, testing each step before committing his weight. The verglas reflected the gray sky above, almost invisible under the thin layer of snow. Archangel's crampons clicked loudly on the ice as he followed, narrating his every move to the camera, oblivious to the thin line of danger beneath his feet. Twice he slipped, letting out a yelp that he immediately spun into a joke for his viewers. Walker caught his arm each time, the jolt sending a shiver up his spine as he felt the cold seep into his bones. His mind raced. One wrong step here could trigger a slide down the steep incline, and no amount of footage would matter if that happened. As they gained further elevation, the weather began deteriorating exactly as forecast. The temperature dropped rapidly, and wind speeds increased noticeably. Snow that had been falling lightly turned into driving, horizontal sheets. Walker recommended they turn back, explaining that conditions above tree line would be exponentially worse. Archangel refused, citing his sponsorship obligations and the dramatic footage opportunities the storm provided. The guide's concerns intensified as they continued climbing. Ice-covered rocks made footing treacherous, and snow drifts in exposed areas reached depths of 8 feet. Archangel struggled with the technical aspects of winter hiking, frequently requiring Walker's assistance with crampon adjustments and ice axe techniques. Each time the guide helped him, Archangel captured it on camera, framing these moments as learning from a master rather than acknowledging his own inexperience. Walker's attempts to educate Archangel about mountain safety were consistently interrupted by filming requirements. When the guide tried to explain the signs of approaching dangerous weather, Archangel asked him to repeat the information while looking directly into the camera. When Walker demonstrated proper ice axe self-arrest techniques, Archangel insisted on multiple takes to get the right angles. The educational moments became performance pieces, and the guide's genuine expertise was reduced to content for social media consumption. The wind began affecting their communication as they climbed higher. Walker had to raise his voice to be heard, and Archangel frequently missed important safety instructions because he was focused on his camera work. The guide found himself repeating crucial information multiple times, often having to physically get Archangel's attention away from his filming to ensure critical safety messages were received. They reached treeline at approximately 4,200 feet elevation, and the full force of the storm hit immediately. Wind speeds that had been manageable in the forest became violent and disorienting. The temperature, already around -10 degrees, felt like -35 with the wind chill. Visibility dropped to less than 30 feet, and the sound of the wind made communication difficult even at close range. The wind shredded the sound around them, whipping snow into their eyes and making every step a battle. Walker's gloves stung as frost bit through the seams, and he felt each icy gust like a punch to the chest. Archangel shouted over the roar, trying to narrate the scene, his words lost to the storm. Walker gestured frantically, pointing toward lower ground, but Archangel misread it as part of his filming directions. The guide's mind cataloged every hazard: hidden crevices under the snow, shifting ice sheets, potential avalanche zones, all while calculating how much longer they could endure the storm before retreat became the only viable option. Walker's face mask, which had been functioning properly at lower elevations, began failing in the extreme conditions. Ice buildup from his breath created gaps in the seal, exposing portions of his cheek and nose to the direct wind. He attempted to adjust the mask several times, but his hands were already becoming numb, despite insulated gloves. Archangel continued filming, capturing what he would later describe on social media as raw mountain emotions and the moment when nature tests your soul. The guide's distress became increasingly apparent as they pushed higher. His movements became less fluid, and he began making small errors in judgment that would have been unthinkable under normal conditions. When he struggled to properly secure a piece of safety equipment, Archangel zoomed in on his fumbling hands, later posting the clip with a caption about pushing through adversity and what real determination looks like. Archangel's filming grew more intrusive as conditions worsened. He positioned his camera to capture Walker's obvious discomfort and struggle, focusing on the guide's increasingly labored breathing and the ice forming on his exposed facial hair. The influencer provided running commentary about the authentic mountain experience and real human drama, treating Walker's genuine distress as content for his audience. The guide's professional obligation to his client warred with his growing awareness that they were in genuine danger. His years of experience told him they should have turned back an hour ago, but Archangel's insistence on continuing, combined with the doubled payment, kept him moving upward. Walker began making more frequent stops, ostensibly to check equipment, but actually to assess Archangel's condition and their overall situation. By noon, they had reached 5,000 feet elevation, well into the Alpine Garden area, where the mountain's full fury was unleashed. Walker's face mask had completely failed, leaving his skin exposed to temperatures that could cause frostbite in minutes. Tears formed in his eyes from the wind and cold, immediately freezing on his cheeks. Archangel captured these moments in detail, focusing on the guide's obvious pain and frustration, while providing running commentary about authentic mountain experiences. The guide's hands had become too numb to properly manage the safety equipment that could mean the difference between life and death in these conditions. He attempted to communicate the severity of their situation to Archangel, but the influencer was focused on capturing dramatic footage of the storm and their struggle against it. Walker's attempts to signal for descent were misinterpreted as temporary setbacks rather than emergency warnings. Archangel's inexperience became dangerous as conditions deteriorated. He failed to recognize the signs of hypothermia in his guide, instead interpreting Walker's slurred speech and coordination problems as fatigue or altitude effects. The influencer's focus remained on his content creation, and he missed multiple opportunities to assess their situation objectively and make the decision to retreat. By early afternoon, Walker began showing clear signs of hypothermia. His speech became slurred, and his coordination deteriorated noticeably. He stumbled several times on terrain he would normally navigate easily, and his decision-making became impaired. Archangel continued filming, seemingly unaware that these were symptoms of a life-threatening condition rather than simple fatigue. The guide's condition continued to worsen as they attempted to find shelter from the wind. His core body temperature was dropping, and the early stages of hypothermia were affecting his judgment and motor skills. He made several attempts to signal that they needed to descend immediately, but Archangel interpreted these as temporary setbacks rather than emergency warnings. Walker's movements became increasingly unsteady. His normally sure footing failed him repeatedly, and he began making navigation errors that would have been impossible under normal conditions. The guide's face had taken on a waxy appearance, where it was exposed to the wind, and his fingers had lost most of their dexterity despite his insulated gloves. Archangel continued documenting every aspect of Walker's deterioration, creating what he would later edit into a narrative about human endurance and the power of perseverance. He captured close-up footage of the guide's frostbitten cheeks and the ice forming on his facial hair, describing these moments in his voice-over commentary as the raw beauty of mountain adventure. Shortly afterward, near an exposed high-elevation section at approximately 5,200 feet, Walker collapsed. If you're finding this story intense, hit the like button to support more real-life adventure rescues, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story like this. The guide fell forward into the snow, struggling to maintain his footing, his breath ragged against the biting wind. Archangel, exhausted from the climb, but still focused on filming, failed to notice a hidden patch of ice beneath the fresh snow. His crampons slipped, and his heavy pack sent him tumbling down the steep slope. Rocks scraped against him as he slid, the cold wind cutting across his body, and he landed with a sickening thud, the impact leaving him motionless. Walker lunged toward him, bracing against the gusts that threatened to knock him off balance. He tried to roll Archangel onto his back, shield him from the wind, and cover him with the emergency bivvy he carried. But the storm was merciless. Visibility was nearly zero, and the wind stung every exposed inch of skin. The expensive gear Archangel had carried for dramatic footage, his cameras, the portable heaters, even the insulated layers, lay largely unused. Walker activated the emergency beacon, shouting over the wind, but Archangel did not respond. His breathing grew shallow, then erratic, before fading entirely. Walker worked desperately to stabilize him, applying layers, pressing heat packs against his core, and attempting basic hypothermia protocols. But the combination of severe injuries from the fall, exposure, and hypothermia was overwhelming. Minutes felt like hours as the storm refused to relent. The ground rescue teams faced near impossible conditions. Snow whipped across the tree line in white torrents, and drifts over 6 feet high slowed their progress to a crawl. Every step Walker took was a struggle. Frostbite began setting into his own fingers and toes as he tried to shield Archangel. Despite the freezing wind and near-zero visibility, he refused to give up, desperately holding on to the young man's body, trying to maintain what little warmth he could. By the time rescuers arrived, it was tragically too late. Archangel's body had succumbed to hypothermia and the injuries sustained during his fall. Walker, though exhausted and suffering from frostbite and minor injuries, was alive. He assisted the rescue team in stabilizing himself before helping authorities reconstruct the climb, recounting every detail. Archangel's obsession with filming, his repeated refusal to heed expert advice, and the escalating risks that had led to the fatal accident. State wildlife and rescue authorities conducted a full investigation, reviewing Archangel's footage, interviewing Walker, and consulting medical and mountaineering experts. Their findings were clear. Archangel's inexperience, obsession with content, and prioritization of ego over safety directly caused his death. Investigators noted multiple points where the climb could have been safely abandoned, yet every opportunity to retreat was ignored for the sake of dramatic footage. Walker sustained frostbite to 3 fingertips and moderate nerve damage in his hands and feet, injuries requiring months of rehabilitation. Though he survived, the climb left permanent physical and emotional scars. Archangel's death became a stark warning of how social media, obsession, ego, and inexperience can turn even guided climbs into deadly situations. The aftermath also drew significant legal and financial consequences. Civil suits were filed by Archangel's family and involved sponsors, scrutinizing both the climb and the decisions leading up to it. Walker cooperated fully with the investigation, his testimony critical in understanding how a trained guide's expertise was ignored in favor of content creation. In the end, Mount Everest remained as indifferent as ever, unforgiving, harsh, and dangerous. Walker's survival was a testament to experience, prudence, and resilience. Archangel's death, captured on camera and later widely shared, became a chilling example of what happens when ambition and ego outweigh caution and respect for the mountain. The tragedy served as a haunting reminder that no amount of preparation or gear can replace judgment, experience, and humility in the face of nature's power.